Howdy, folks. Well, it appears that Microsoft has struck again with borked updates. And we're here at PCMagazine.com, or PCMag.com rather, where John C. Dvorak tells us all about it. And this has to do with the Windows 10 anniversary update. And of course, it's been released, for several weeks. And when it first came out, we got reports of apparently quite a few people who were installing the anniversary update, and it just borked their computers because it caused their computers to go into an endless reboot cycle. They'd boot the machine and just immediately it would just reboot. So they couldn't use the computers, right? And unfortunately, this is not something that's completely new for Microsoft because over the past couple of years, they got a lot of bad press for their borked Windows 7 and Windows 8 updates. People would install the updates and they would end up with, again, unusable computers. They were all borked. So, but at least with Windows 7 and Windows 8, users had the ability to choose whether or not to install the updates at a given time, and they could pick which individual little updates they wanted to install, pick which ones they did not want to install, so they at least had some control over the update system, right? And that's actually, well, really one of the last ways that Microsoft had of allowing users to control their own computers. And that's one of the things I've always hated about Windows because it does take so much control away from the user. But at least then, as I say, if they had a bad update, the computers, the users could decide whether or not to install the updates right away. So on my Windows 7 machines, I just got to the place where I would not install updates until at least a week or so after the updates came out. Well, now with Windows 10, you've lost pretty much all control over your updates. The normal updates, they get installed whether you want them or not. They get installed at any time, anytime the computer is running, and you have no control over it. Okay, the only exception to the rule is if you have Windows 10 Pro or better, then it will allow you to defer upgrades. So for that reason, I have Windows computers. Not that I like it, it's just that there are certain things which I have to have them for. One of them, believe it or not, ironically, is I have to have Windows to teach Linux because my client requires me to use a web meeting service which has a Linux application for it, but it's the Linux application for it is so buggy that I have to go back to using Windows. And the Mac application is also buggy. So I'm stuck using Windows for that, which, ironic, breaks my heart, but nothing I can do about it, right? But anyway, so on my Windows computers, which are all Windows 10 Pro except for one, I went in and I chose to defer the upgrades. So you can, on Windows 10 Pro or better, you can choose to delay when these major updates like the Anniversary Edition get installed. But you cannot do that on Windows 10 Home. The Windows 10 Home, that Anniversary Update is going to get installed whenever Microsoft feels like you need to have it. You have zero control. Zero. Well, you do have some control. You can just not turn on your computer, right? But anyway, John Dvorak here is saying that the forced upgrade mentality now prevalent at Microsoft could be the company's undoing. Well, could be, and maybe not. It does seem like a lot of computer users out there are very tolerant of Microsoft and their foibles because they don't know anything different. I mean, face it, there's a vast sea of computer users out there who know how to turn on a computer and they know how to pull up their favorite applications, and that's pretty much it. So, most likely, this is not going to hurt Microsoft all that bad. I mean, people have stuck through Microsoft. They've stuck with Microsoft through Windows Vista and Windows 8, and they'll stick with Microsoft through this as well. I'm quite sure of it. So they might lose a few people, who will defect to either Mac or to Linux, but I don't think it's going to hurt them that much. But still, it is very frustrating, and it is one of the reasons why my primary operating system is Linux. When I'm not doing something that requires Windows, I'm going to be on a Linux machine. And, well, just like now, you can see I'm on my Fedora machine. So, but with Linux, you have complete control over your operating system. So there's none of this business of letting the operating system make all of these decisions for you, whether you want to do a certain thing or not. It's you can control when your updates get installed. I mean, yeah, if you have a desktop system, you might have a little thing popping up and says, hey, updates are available, but you can choose whether or not to install them at that time, and or whether or not to install them at all. You're never going to be forced to do anything. So, so if you are afraid of doing an upgrade right away or an update right away when updates come out because you don't know whether or not there might be problems with them, you can wait until you do some research and find out if anybody else is having problems with them before you install them yourself. Windows 10, as I said, that option is not available, except for the fact if you got Windows 10 Pro or better, yeah, you can defer the major upgrades. So, but the minor updates, the regular updates, they're still going to install whether you want them or not, and you can no longer choose which individual updates you want to install, because now Windows 10 has the updates all in cumulative packages. So again, they've taken more control away from the user, and so it's really a shame. I don't know why they do that. Well, actually, I do kind of know why. It's because in the past, Microsoft has gotten bad press over their bad security for Windows, because Windows is more prevalent to infectious types of malware and what have you than what other operating systems are. So a lot of those problems, of course, came about because people weren't installing their updates, and so now Microsoft wants to put a stop to that. Microsoft says, hey, we know what's good for you, so we are just going to force those updates on you, whether you want them or not, because we want to put an end to the bad press about our bad security. So, so anyway, I kind of get that, but on the other hand, wouldn't you think they just want to try to improve the security, of their operating system to keep these infections, from happening? But anyway, that's where they are. So anyway, you can go through here. I will include the link to this article in the notes below the video, so you'll be able to look at that. And but you can go on down there and read all about this. And John Dvorak, he's been with PC Mag for like 30 years, and so he does do some entertaining writing. So I think you'll like his article here if you go ahead and read it. And one of the things I like is down here at the bottom where he said, yeah, Microsoft has barely dodged a bullet with this cavalier upgrade process, and I do not see corporate culture shifting enough to change methodologies employed for these upgrades, and this includes ignoring beta reports. And that's another thing. Apparently maybe they were beta testing these updates, I don't know, but apparently John Dvorak apparently believes that they were ignoring the reports from the beta testers. So he says here in the final paragraph, here's what we can expect. something that could easily happen in the next few years. Instead of a simple reboot issue, a patch goes out that fries the machine dead. There's no reboot problem because the machine will not boot at all, and you can get far enough to even revert to the previous install. We are getting a glimpse into the future. If Microsoft persists with forced updates, the company needs to rethink its strategy immediately, and I fully agree with them. Okay? Any operating system that takes this kind of control away from the user, it's not a good operating system. I mean, just face it. So, folks, if at all possible, switch to Linux. You'll be a lot happier. You'll avoid a lot of problems. So anyway, that's all. If you enjoy my videos, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.